Shrugged family, this week on Barbell Shrugged, the homies are back. Doug, Travis, and I. We're talking about speed and power, elasticity and muscles, the way that you can be training them. I know this is a hot topic for amongst all of the, let's call them the middle-agers, the people in their 40s and 50s. They're still trying to be jacked and strong and fast and athletic. And this is really like an approach that you can start to take in understanding how we and you can likely start to add strength and power, or speed and power, back into your training regimen, and then a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that you might be missing, and how to start working on them if you are interested in continuing to develop power, and knowing that is one of the largest signs of longevity and just overall health. So as always, friends, make sure you get over to rapidhealthreport.com. That is where you can learn more all about rapid health optimization and how we can take you to feeling and performing better than you ever have in your entire life. You can access all of those resources and schedule a call to learn more over at rapidhealthreport.com. Friends, let's get into the show. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner, Doug Larson, Coach Travis Smash. Just the homies hanging out today. Bros, homie show.
Homie show.
Doug, we were having a really in-depth conversation about the word homie the other day. That's like what I teach my little dude to call his friends.
Yeah.
I feel like the word homie doesn't get enough
homies.
street cred. Yeah, like every time we come home, first off, we just last week started playing street hockey in the cul-de-sac, and I'm out there just dicing up 6-year-olds. Like, they just do not have a chance. They've never seen a pair of hands like I still possess at the age of 41. Wow. And I have taken more 6-year-olds lunch money and talk smack to them every time I score a goal that it really should be. I shouldn't get this much enjoyment out of it, but I
wait. When we talk about hands with hockey, like,
yeah,
when I hear hands, I think baseball or like football, catching.
Yeah.
What is having great hands in hockey?
It means that you, the same thing it does in like basketball, where like you just handle the puck very, very well.
You got mad handles. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like I'm not the biggest, I'm not the fastest, but I can get around 6-year-olds. Oh, it's so good. I love it. Today on Barbell Shrugged, friends. Oh, and then Doug, every time, the reason I haven't said that was because every time we try and get a game going now, I go, Anson, you need to go find all your homies and get them in the cul-de-sac right now. And that little man, 3 years old, will run to all of his friends' house and start knocking on doors until it's in. When the parents answer, he goes, my homies need to get to the cul-de-sac. I feel like I'm really doing it. I feel like I'm really exceeding parenting goals here when my little 3-year-old's knocking on doors going, homies need to come to the cul-de-sac right now to play hockey.
He'll be a future salesman at Rapid.
Whatever.
That's right.
I try to make them ask for everything from all the people.
Perfect.
And never allow me to ask for them.
Dude, every time a little kid comes to my door and says, like, can Riley come out to play? And they like come to the door and ask if kids can come play like we used to do. I fucking love it. I'm like, hell yeah, they can, dude. Come on inside. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Well, we live in the country. There's none of that going on.
Dude, I'm headed to the country, buddy.
Where are you going? Where are y'all going?
17 acres, my man. Lewisburg, nice. North Carolina.
Oh, did you buy that land you were talking about?
Yeah, we did.
My man. Awesome.
I got an orchard all of a sudden in my life.
Proud of you.
Wild. I'm a Starlink person.
Nice.
Still being available.
When you're out there, you go to Starlink.
Nice.
Telling Doug yesterday, all these politics people need to leave Elon alone. That's if he goes down, so does my internet. I need him. I need Elon.
I love Elon. I just love it. I love any man who says what he, thinks. Even if I don't like it, I just love the fact that he's not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
Gangster.
Thanks for letting us all hang out in your ears this morning on Barbell Shrugged. We're actually going to talk about real fitness stuff. Yes. We're going to talk about speed and power and how we are assessing training programs and things that we're thinking about, because the number one thing that as we all get older, now that we're all in our 40s and MASH in your 50s, is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
A very wise gray beard there.
51.
I'm the strongest 51-year-old that exists. Do you think you are?
No. No.
51?
There's this guy, David Ricks, who is like he's like 60 maybe, and he's still competing in powerlifting at a high level. Like he just squatted 650.
Whoa.
Like, but I mean, I'm pretty sure, I'm positive I could if I wanted, but I'm just like, I have no desire to put 650 pounds on my back.
I mean,
That's the
I saw
part
you
that's the
pull
most impressive.
700 cold like
did see
7 years
that.
ago. That
You
wasn't
did
that
see
long
that.
ago. Pulling 700 without warming up.
That was crazy. So yeah, that was my last 700 deadlift. So probably the last one ever. And you saw it. That's awesome. I didn't think about
At the
that.
farm.
Yeah, at the Mash Strength Spectacular.
All
Hell yeah.
because some guy said, this young boy said, come, why don't you get in here with us, old man, he called me. And so I'm like,
You're like, oh, hell no.
I was like, I'll do just that.
Well, let's dig in.
Yeah.
Speed and power, specifically power. Really, I think about this all the time. I don't think about power much until I'm like standing on a box or getting ready to go jump, and that little thing happens in your brain that goes, maybe think about this. Maybe don't push the limits.
No kidding.
Like if you're standing on a swing set and you got to go jump off like one of the little platforms, and your brain goes, hold up. We don't really catch ourselves too often anymore. That's when I know that needs to be added to my training, and I need to keep working
100%.
on that thing, because your brain should not be telling you that, especially for people that consider them to be like strong, athletic, well functioning people.
Well, it's actually like one of the like big points that I think should be brought up today is like you're talking about landing from jumps. That's like deceleration. There's always higher forces in deceleration than acceleration. So like as you go from your teens, 20s, and 30s into your 40s, 50s, and 60s, the amount of speed power based things you're doing that are concentric only versus eccentric, not it would be eccentric only, but versus having a large eccentric component, is that ratio is going to shift. Instead of doing box jumps where you jump up and then you jump down, you bound back up. Now you're jumping up and stepping down, but you're jumping up and then stepping down. So you're doing the concentric components. So you're still contracting your muscles as hard as you can against gravity. So you can jump, but you're not jumping down maybe. So the amount of forces you're experiencing on the downside are essentially eliminated, but you're still getting the concentric piece. Same goes for, running stair sprints or hill sprints. Like it's the concentric part, or doing like sled pushes, or sled sprints, full speed sled sprints. You're doing the concentric only part, but not the eccentric component. And so it's a very safe way to still train for power while radically reducing your injury potential.
100%. And I think that's definitely where we should all start. It's like, here's what happens. You see the biggest injury, especially at my age. You'll see the guy go pick up, play a game of pickup basketball, and boom, Achilles goes out. Achilles tendon. I saw it when I saw my old high school football coach jump in a pickup basketball game, and I heard his Achilles snap. It was horrible, but it's just because we don't.
Every CrossFit gym owner just went,
yeah.
But
it's so true, and you can't just stop doing something, and especially you don't do anything like that for a decade. All of a sudden, I'm gonna go play basketball and expect your connective tissue not to have been, to some degrading. There's going to be degradation for sure. So
yeah, we had that happen at our gym. We had like the biggest divorce attorney in town was doing box jumps, and he's a fairly young, fit, muscular dude, but he probably hadn't done like box jumps and plyos in high volume in a long time, or debatably even ever. But as he was bounding, jumping off and then bounding and jumping back up, he popped an Achilles tendon, and it was loud, and he fell on the ground, and like we ran over there and we were like, "You all right?" And he goes, "I'm not going to sue you." And we go, "Okay, cool. Thank you." Whew. All right.
That's really what we're asking.
Get you out of here. Get you to the hospital here. You're good.
Someone take care of this man.
Don't take me down. I have like $17.35
to my name
that you could take from me. Have you noticed how it's all concrete floors and it's very dirty in here? There's a reason for that. I just graduated from graduate school.
I have nothing. So
I have nothing.
I'll give you this box.
Some iron plates that were donated to me.
No doubt. So, it's so true though. And like the power, like say people who are listening who are our age or aging, 40 and above, you think, why do I even care about power? But it's so important. You go out and play pickup basketball or football with your children or grandchildren as you get even older, and you need to be prepared. And plus, think about this. And I heard Andy talking about this. You're going through the house and you trip and fall. You need the speed to be able to prevent that fall. But you lose it, and it's one of the first things of all the things, even over VO2 max. Your power you will lose quicker and more suddenly than any of your other attributes. So it's an important one if you want to live a while, especially if you want function, which all three of us agreed. We don't want to, in longevity. I want to live, but I want to be quality life. So
yeah. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, because when I think about the power side of things, there's obviously like call it like the 1 rep max, the max vertical. I feel like the thing that I maybe lack the most, as I have not been training like speed, call it like Olympic lifting for going on like 6 years now, or even CrossFit in general, is like the bounding and the elasticity side of it. Like when a lot of times when I'm with the kids outside and I'm always just trying to like do stuff, I'll go over to like just the curb and try to do like just little bounding exercises. And I've noticed that the elasticity side of the muscles, it doesn't work like it used to.
I hate that too. I know.
It drives me crazy, because I very much view like speed and power as just general athleticism. Like you don't have fast people that aren't athletic. It's like people that hit golf balls a long ways, they hit it straight. They don't hit it a long ways to the right or left. It's always straight. But if you can be fast and have the speed and power, but still be lacking that kind of the elasticity, the spring of that musculature, what is that? Why does that part seem to go away? Or is it just because I only train it casually, thinking about it like in a playful way versus like actually getting up and trying to do like rebounding box jumps or things like that?
Well, a lack of elasticity that's when you're at risk of tearing the tendon. And here's why, is because a lot of the properties that causes us to be elastic would be our connective tissue, particularly, tendons. We definitely think about, we had Dr. Keith Barr on our show a long time ago, but he talked about it. And so when you're losing that elasticity, it's a big red flag to tell you that I'm also now at risk of a big, major tendon or even, ligament tear. And so it's a red flag. And it just to improve elasticity, especially, I mean, it's not just tendons. There's also like, titin, it's a protein molecule inside our muscle that all it does is anchor myosin, and it's the biggest actually protein filament, but it's really important to elasticity as well. But tendon is the one that puts you at risk of getting an injury. And so there's a couple ways. Normal strength training, you can do just normal squats. A good idea to improve elasticity at a higher rate would be doing isometrics. And the reason why is because you can do it more often. So let's say that you really wanted to get ready for, a pickup basketball, or you want to do this 40 and older basketball league. And so you want to prepare quickly. You could conceivably do isometric work every single day, because it only takes like 6 hours to recover from. The key would be to do it in a lengthened position. And by that, I mean, let's say that I want to improve my knee joint. And so think about getting into the bottom of a squat and pushing into a barbell that's loaded so heavy you can't move it. And so you're improving that patella tendon in a lengthened position. Or, when it comes to the Achilles, same thing. Getting into the bottom of a standing calf raise and pushing into something you can't move. You could do that every single day and improve that tendon quality. That would improve thickness. But when it comes to, the matrix, the collagen matrix that you need also, then you need to start doing the bounding. And what you said, Anders, is a brilliant idea. To start nice and easy, just up onto the curb. Jump rope is a very simple, low load, low risk way of preparing and getting those connections to happen. Yes.
Yeah. I remember we took advanced muscle physiology in graduate school. I actually took that class with Andy. There's only 4 of us in the class and 1 professor. So it was like a super small class.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It was great. Oh, yeah, it was just like sitting around a table chatting, basically. Although it was a 3-hour class, right after lunch. And so I would get in there after eating a huge lunch, and I would just like be trying not to fall asleep for a 3 hour class.
You're doing the college nod, like
Coffee,
ripping your head off the
coffee,
table.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no hiding in that class. But I loved the class, but I was always sleepy because I was training a ton back then and probably not sleeping as much as I should. So I'd always be sleepy after lunchtime. But anyway, I do remember talking about how as you age, the ratio or the relative ratios of collagen and elastin shift over time. And I don't remember to what degree it was because over time you have, again, on a percentage basis, less and less and less fast switch fiber, fewer fast switch fibers, and more slow twitch fibers, typically on average as you age, assuming you're kind of a normal-ish person there. But I'm assuming, again, I don't remember all this every detail here, but I'm assuming as you lose elastin, you're less elastic, and as you gain more collagen, it's more likely to tear instead of stretch.
Right.
So like those changes over time can contribute to it. But yeah, to your point about the kind of low impulse plyos, like on a practical level, if I structure an individual training session with the template of, you warm up and then you do speed-based things and then power-based things and then strength-based things and then kind of volume hypertrophy-based things and then kind of conditioning at the end is like an easy template for a single training session. Not the only way to do it, but that's a common way to do it. And you wouldn't have to do all 5 sections. You could just do speed work, strength work, and then go home, or you could just do power work and hypertrophy and then go home. But that's kind of the order of things on average. Right. So usually as a part of my warm-ups, I incorporate low-level speed and plyos into my warm-ups. And that's like high knees and butt kickers and lateral shuffles and skips and all those types of things that you probably used to do when you're warming up for football practice, but most people just don't do it on average when they go to the gym. But luckily now most gyms, even regular big box gyms, have like a turfed area for most of the gyms I go to. There's somewhere where I can do things like that. And so now when I go train, that's very often what I do in my warm-ups is I do some type of very easy lateral skips. I mean, maybe even like single leg bounding, but like it's all pretty low level stuff. And then maybe on the speed side of it, again, I might do like full speed burpees is one other way that I do speed stuff that doesn't beat me up too much, where I do, like 3 burpees in a row where I go as fast as I can down, essentially sprawl like I'm at wrestling practice. And then I stand up and jump as high as I can and then sprawl again and stand up and jump as high as I can. I'll do like a triple where I'm not getting tired really. I'm just working on moving full speed. Or maybe I'll do that where I'll do the burpee and then jump up onto a box and then step down, then do a burpee and jump up onto a box and step down. So like doing full speed burpees or even full speed assault bike sprints, do an EMOM where every minute on the minute you do like an 8-second sprint where you're not doing assault bike sprints where you're like going to throw up. You're just working somehow, some way at moving as fast as you possibly can, which most people just don't do. So if you continue to do, if I do assault bike sprints 100% full speed, I'm not going to hurt myself. I can do that until I'm 75 years old. I'll probably go slower when I'm 75 than I will right now, but still it's the intention to move as fast as possible that I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to do it in a conservative way that will essentially never injure me.
That's what I loved about Andy's, even when he did his podcast on VO2 Max, and he was talking about in his warm-ups, there's power and speed warm-ups, just like you're talking about. Mainly think about too, like, because the importance of power besides just say basketball, but even if you want to run a marathon, you've got to have those elastic qualities and those strong tendons to be able to do that without injury as well. So he, at the beginning of all of his VO2 and even his cardiovascular podcast, he talked about the warm-ups all included some type of bounding. Even had strength work in all of them to once again prepare the joints for the beating that you're going to take. So it's not just when you talk power, you're not just saying I want to train to be the most explosive human on earth. You're really just talking about the qualities and the physiological changes that go along with power training.
Yeah. Kind of adding on to like the bounding and just me playing on the curb and hopping up the stairs and things like that.
Hey, wait, is homie still a word? People still use that word?
Oh, I'm bringing it back.
Yeah, we're saying it. We've been saying it lately.
Okay, all right. I'm good with it.
I truly believe that homie, like, where are my homies, is like the coolest way to talk about your bros.
Homies, I like it
mostly because I think it went away. I don't know if kids are saying it these days, but I'm raising a 3-year-old son that only calls his friends his homies.
Homies. I like
But
that.
also,
He's not
if
even
I
old
was
enough
in
to
my
have bros yet, right?
Yeah.
But like you can get him, like, dude, you got to go knock on the homies' doors and get them going.
Homies.
It's time.
I'm gonna help you out with this cause.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my kids doing it.
Yeah, it's better. It's these things go away. They go in cycles. We can bring back homies immediately.
I like homies. What were you gonna say, Doug?
I was gonna say, if someone from the future came to me in high school and said, "Hey, when you're in your 40s, you're gonna call people homie," I'd be like, "I don't think so, man. I don't.
Yeah,
That doesn't sound accurate to me."
Yeah.
Here I
It
am.
sounds way better. The part of the athleticism that I really like the most, and that I feel like really starts to fade is you're talking about the, like, if you could sign up for a basketball league, and that's like the most dangerous thing you can possibly do in your life is go
It really
play pickup
is.
basketball and think that you're just gonna like cross up your friend without blowing your Achilles.
And you're gonna jump like you
Sure.
used to. Yeah.
But is that reaction time? And is the reaction time kind of the elasticity paired with the neurological side of it? Because I feel like that's the thing that I'm chasing more than, do I get to go run and sprint, or have I lost an inch or two off of my already pathetic vertical that never was good to begin with?
I've lost so much.
But yeah, you used to be able to dunk. The
Yeah.
side to side, or like that reaction time, is really the goal that I'm chasing after. The athleticism of not just being able to hop up and down on the curb and feel good, but I feel like the part of that I struggle with the most is actually the reaction time of my feet hitting the ground, the wires going all the way up to my brain, and being able to essentially do tiny little depth jumps back to back, many of them in a row. But I don't have that like athleticism and like almost like the neurological side of using the power that has probably eroded the most, that I want back, because that's my ability to get up and go play. Like, I don't like, that's like going and playing tag and not feeling like you can cut.
There's like three components. There's the rate coding side of things, which is the signal, from the brain down the alpha motor neuron to the muscle. Then there's the stretch shortening cycle, which is at the joint. And this is only when you're cutting. The stretch shortening cycle only comes into play like when you're talking about you plant your foot, change directions. And then there's the elasticity. Those are the three, and all three of them are improved. And sometimes they're together, but you can target all three of them doing different things. So
Yeah.
I actually would love to see
that's
us.
the piece that I really want to like in the end, the thing that I want out of my whole life is to be an athlete. Because if you could just be athletic, you can go play, and you have freedom of function, freedom of movement, just freedom in general to get out and go do what you want to do.
Right.
Like, just mentally, I want to consider myself to be an athlete literally until the day I die.
I totally agree.
But that piece of it is that, like, if you measured my vertical at 25, I bet it's really close to the same. But the problem with measuring my vertical, I was, if I get 3 inches off the ground, like at most in my best day, I was slapping the second row of netting on the basketball hoop. Like, not the top second row, the bottom second.
That's rough. That's rough.
Like, it's really, there's not much jumping going on. So like maybe that's reduced some, but I don't care about standing in place and doing it. I want to be moving at full speed and be able to stop.
Plant your foot, stop, and then
I want to be able to plant and cut. I want to be able to like get up and just go as hard as I possibly can without having to worry about, one, injury, of course, but two, feeling unathletic in those movements, which has to be a some sort of erosion of the neurological function at the speed at which those wires are firing, that make hopping up on the curb for a set of 10, just where I'm only like bounding off of my toes.
It's all of it together. It really is. It's like it's practicing, because when it comes to rate coding, there's also things like the coordination of the signals being sent. There's also like the being able to also cut off things like the antagonist. So when you're doing, say, when you're cutting, you want your hamstrings to cut off when the quads are working. So and that comes down to just doing the things more often. You don't have to necessarily play basketball, but you need to do things like cutting. You need to do things like shuffling, backpedaling. In practice, basically, GPP is what you're talking about. But then when it comes to improving your ability to make that plant, then it comes down to improving the stretch shortening cycle, improving elasticity, and there's definitely ways for each. And so, yeah.
I remember hearing that about like the fastest, most coordinated people. You mentioned the antagonists. Like I remember hearing a while ago, like it might even been in that same muscle course that I was talking about, where the fastest, most coordinated people, the antagonist muscles would be the most relaxed. So it wasn't necessarily about all the power they could produce. It was the fact that for those people, for whatever reason, I don't remember the rationale, but the antagonist muscles would relax the quickest relative to other people, and that way whether they're playing basketball or running sprints or whatever, they had the minimum amount of resistance coming from their own body, which allowed them to be faster and very I used to call it being very whippy. Especially when I was doing like second pull for snatches or whatever. Like you can be very whippy. You have that kind of that very explosive, very fluid look to you.
Pro baseball pitcher.
I think that's what
180 pounds and they throw 95. And I'm like, your arms are just whippy.
We have a guy here that
real science based.
I mean, but he's right. I understand we saying whippy, and it's another reason why I think weightlifting is so good for athletes is because a weightlifter has to be super good at that coordination between the agonist antagonist. You'll see all the great weightlifters. When their quads are working, their hamstrings are off, and it's just they move so fluid, and there's none of that. A power lifter, on the other hand, say when he's doing a squat, I'll give an example. Nathan Damron, probably one of the greatest squatters ever.
Freaky. He used to be my favorite when you were listening. Like, how did that
I still love that guy.
That ball, the bar used to just wave.
Oh yeah.
It was like you found him a special like loose bar or something.
But it was
so much weight on there.
It was just his coordination. And like I used to watch him squat. And like he never
timed it so well.
Perfect. Because he was so good at that movement. Right. Yeah. And there was no, like when I squatted, like he never was able to squat as much as I was able to squat when I was young.
Never.
But it was the way he squatted. Like I watched him squat when he squatted 705 versus when I squatted 705 was like two different movements. His was just like so fluid and fast, whereas mine was like slow and grindy because my agonist antagonist were both supporting each other, trying to keep that stability. It's just two different ball games.
It's super true. He used to bounce. Whatever he did to time the push out of the hole was amazing. It was like cheating. It's like when you watch somebody that's like super good at clean and jerk, they stand up out of the hole super easy, but
effortlessly.
It's like the bar does all the work for them. I never figured out how to time it that well.
Oh man, like with a squat, that boy, like it never was really how much, even though squatted 705, and when he's like 20 years old, it was just how he squatted. Like when he would do 405 versus like anybody else in the whole world, it was like two different movements. Because there was no agonist antagonist working against each other. There was the synergist helping out, and then there was the agonist doing the work. And the boy was so fluid. But that is what, for your answer your question, that is what you just need to do those movements more often. You need to keep doing some strength training, of course, and then bounding. Bounding is really what we need to make sure that we have that good, strong, tendons, ligaments, and so. One thing we don't do too, like it crushes me, boys. When I jump now, like it was a year ago, and I went out and played basketball with my kids, and I went to jump, and it was like somebody turned the off button on.
Dude, that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. When you go to jump off, like just like a little play structure of some sort, and your brain's like, no. You weigh 190 pounds, and that times gravity means you aren't in good enough shape to do this right now. Stop. Your brain just cuts off. It doesn't allow it to happen.
I've worked so hard to improve my jumping. It's been a year, and like this is sad. I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but like, so I finally got my vertical to 27 inches, but you're talking to a guy who used to jump over 38 inches ongoing. And so it's 11 inches less, but And even that took me a year to get back to. That's how bad my power and elasticity had gotten.
Yeah.
So, and
dude, what do you think about like the quality of the actual tissue, like muscle tissue plays into this conversation?
a lot, yeah, because as we grow older, like Doug said, the percentage of slow twitch fibers, or even your fat, it's not like that your type 2X and 2A fibers all of a sudden turn to one. It's just they take on qualities of, like the slower, they become more, oxygenated versus like that all being all phosphorus creatine or whatever, phosphogen creatine, like they just take on this slow twitch, qualities, and Titan starts to get less. That's a big one in our muscle. It's not just fast twitch, slow twitch looking at the mice, and it's also the quality of that Titan protein filament. And people don't talk about it. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. That's so dang true,
Yeah, there's a company that we're kind of loosely partnered with called Springbok, and we have a guy that we work with that was a physical therapist with them. And one thing I've learned from him is that Springbok takes MRI data and creates a 3D model of muscle mass. And one of the things they measure is fat infiltration. And if I remember correctly, fat infiltration, which I don't believe is the same as like building up intramuscular fat from like endurance training. I think this is something separate. But fat infiltration in muscles is like highly correlated to injury potential. So even things like that, and I don't know exactly what contributes specifically to the type of fat infiltration that they're talking about, but it is a change in muscle quality that they, I believe, have correlated specifically to injury potential for hamstring pulls and what have you.
I mean, I think even like when we start getting those micro injuries throughout our life too, a lot of times that's correlated to increases in that fat infiltration around the muscle for whatever reason. I have guaranteed there's been a lot of fat infiltration around my muscles, so it's just a different ball game.
Yeah.
I would only assume that fat infiltration around your muscles goes up as you get older.
It does.
If it's negative, it probably goes up as you get older.
And we should probably qualify too. When people say power, it's just that force times velocity. But that's a big range. So anything really is power. It's just that I think, but what most people think about is that the producing force at that very high rate. But then, that it's been separated by most in speed versus strength. Strength. You got the strength, speed, and speed, strength. You got the fast, really fast, like jumping, and then you have like the clean. Those are both powerful, but one is much faster. So, and they're all important.
I also wonder to what degree your involuntary muscle fibers lose their effectiveness over time if you're not training them. This ties back into your conversation about stretch shortening cycles, where if you have muscle spindles that are only activated when they're quickly stretched, like the easy example, the kind of the classic example is when you're at the doctor's office and you're sitting on the table and they bonk the front of your patellar ligament and then since that gives your quads a little stretch, you automatically contract your quad muscle involuntarily. So some percentage of your muscles, or muscle fibers rather, I don't know what the percentage is, say it's 1%, are involuntary. You can't contract them on purpose. Like you can contract your quad on purpose, but it's only 99% of them or whatever the real number is. I'm not sure what the real number is. But when you're doing a counter movement jump, as an example, you're standing and you want to jump as high as you can, you squat quickly and then jump. And then because you got a small, or rather a fast stretch of your muscles and that cross your knee and your hips, you're able to jump a little bit higher than you would otherwise, which is why if you just squat down and pause for 5 seconds and then try to jump, you're going to be like, that didn't feel good. I feel like I could jump way higher if I just start standing, go down quickly, and then kind of quote unquote kind of like bounce up. And so having that stretch shortening cycle allows you to jump higher because you're using both your voluntary and involuntary muscle fibers. But I do wonder to what degree, as you get older, those involuntary muscle fibers become kind of less active or less effective, and how that correlates to just general raw, even like isometric strength. Like, are they losing their effectiveness potentially, which I'm assuming they do, because you're just less strong, or because you do less power work, or because there's some type of actual physical structural change with actin and myosin and collagen and elastin and fat infiltration and what have you. I don't know the research on this, but I'd imagine muscle spindles become less effective as you get older for a handful of reasons.
Yeah, totally. And like what happens is not you lose the muscle spindles because muscle spindles run parallel with the muscle fibers, but they just get worse at their job. And so and for a lot of reasons, because when you use the when you get really good at using the stretch shortening cycle, not only do the muscle spindles cause that passive force production, but they're also a big part of what cuts off the antagonist. That's the relationship they have as well. So they have this passive force, they turn off your antagonist, and then there's the other thing, the Golgi tendon organ too, is a lot of times what it will do is it's an inhibitor. And so if you're not using that stretch shortening cycle ongoing and continuing to add more and more eccentric force in there, the Golgi tendon organ will actually inhibit force production because it thinks you're about to snap your tendon. And so that's the thing as well. So really what happens long story short, is that your brain, neurologically, you just don't get, you lose your ability to perform that stretch shortening cycle at higher rates because it's not there. The stretch shortening cycle is not there to make us great athletes. The body has it there to keep us from getting hurt. So it becomes more and more about that and less about, using passive force to make you a great athlete. It starts it starts inhibiting force production to avoid injuries and starts creating less and less of that passive force from the spindles. The Golgi tendon organ and the muscle spindles both lose their ability to do their jobs. In favor of athleticism. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, again, I also wonder to what degree and I'm going to get all these terms not exactly right because I haven't studied all this in a long time. But you're mentioning rate coding earlier, which made me think of this topic. So maybe you can correct me as far as which part of what I'm about to say is actually rate coding and which is something else that I can't remember. But as an example, your muscles only contract 100% or nothing. Each individual muscle fiber only contracts at 100%. But your muscles are kind of like a ponytail. There's lots of little individual muscle fibers. Each hair in this example is a muscle fiber. And so they don't all contract 100% of those fibers. Say there's 10,000 of them in the ponytail example. They're not all 10,000 contracting all at the exact same time. You're going to get an asynchronous contraction where they're all 10,000 and they're kind of randomly firing at different times. And then you get this like smooth asynchronous contraction, but not all 10,000 are going to fire as a single unit.
Right.
The more well-trained you are with speed and power, the more they will fire as a single unit, and the faster the faster you will recruit them. Another way to think about this is if we were doing like a tug of war, and the three of us are on the tug of war team, but we have to fire in order. Where Anders is in front, he has to start pulling, and then I start pulling, and then you start pulling, Travis. The more likely, or the shorter the duration in between when Anders starts and then I start and then you start. If it's 3 seconds in between, or he starts and then I wait and then I start and then 3 seconds later you start, we're probably going to lose. But if he starts and then a quarter of a second later I start and then a quarter of a second you start, within a half a second we're all three pulling, we're going to pull a lot harder. And so like compressing the time in between the contractions in that example is something that probably changes over time as well, where there's more time in between a max voluntary contraction of an individual muscle fiber, whereas if you're well trained, the duration between is a lot shorter.
You're talking about a Henneman's size principle. It's a motor unit. So if a motor unit is the alpha motor neuron, and every muscle fiber that it innervates. And when one is called upon, it's all or nothing. If the alpha motor neuron is if it goes past that, whatever. So when it's activated, it gets threshold. All of them. Yeah. Once you pass the threshold, every single muscle fiber that innervates is turned on. And so you're talking about the synchronization. The more of those big high threshold motor units, which are the big ones that have they don't have a lot of lasting time, meaning they're super strong, super explosive. They have all the fast twitch fibers, but they don't last, like a slow twitch fiber. Those last forever. That's when we walk, we're using those low threshold motor units. Yeah. But when you use those high threshold motor units, it's like a explosion. And the more you use it, the more synchronization. That's the word. You get them all at the same time. They happen at the same time. You get an explosion. That's when fast people like Usain Bolt, like those things turn on all at the same time and then turn
Yeah.
off at the same time. So
Yeah. You're talking about action potentials and refractory periods. I haven't talked
right.
about all this in a while.
Me either. You know, like
I don't usually use all this terminology on the show.
yeah. So, but I did write a pretty cool article about the Henneman size principle on gym aware, and it's the way I wrote it's pretty cool because it's a whole lot more than just motor units being recruited. It's synchronization. It's how you use that principle to improve athleticism and explosion and power, you know, depending on whatever it is you're trying to do. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole lot of layman's term physiology on my end, and then slightly better terminology on Travis's end. But back on the practical,
slightly better, yeah.
Back on the practical side of all this, like again, we're in our 40s and 50s. We still should be training for speed and power to try to just hang on to whatever speed and power we currently have for as long as possible here. So we talked about including kind of skips and high knees and butt kickers and kind of general like football warm-ups, I'll call them in your training weight training warm-ups. We talked about doing concentric only, hill sprints, box jumps. We talked about jumping rope a little bit. We talked about doing like the assault bike sprints.
Awesome.
Even like shadow boxing is also very good. I find shadow boxing for me, if I'm shadow boxing quickly, also just like checks some box of me moving fast in a very conservative way. But what other things you guys have that are very practical that you currently use that are effective for you?
I think over time. So when I did this whole year trying to get my power back, I started out very general, like some jump rope, getting my strength training, and some cleans and box jumps, only box jumps, jump up, step down. And then I slowly started adding some depth jumps. So first thing I did was landings. So you step off a box and land. You want to absorb that force as quickly as you can, decelerate as quickly as you can in a nice position. Then I turn that into more of a box jump, into a depth jump onto a box. And then I started adding hurdles. But this when let me emphasize slowly, like literally over a year before I'm doing these things. Then I started doing AEL. Like here's situated eccentric loading is such a great tool to strengthen the tendons, to encourage type 2 fiber recruitment. And it's just a great way for potentiation to improve power production. So I would start the cycle. I would use heavy dumbbells, lower them, let go, jump up to a box, step off, and then a series of depth jumps over hurdles. And over a year's time.
Like a weight releaser type thing.
Like a weight releaser, but with jumping. And all of that was preceded by like a 70% squat as fast as possible. So for the even more potentiation.
Varying levels.
Yeah.
We used to call that complex training. We do like a heavy movement and then a speed movement right afterward. Yeah.
I love that.
I used to love that stuff.
I love it so much for me as an older person trying to still be athletic. It just it's fun too.
Yeah.
So you get your squats in, you get your jumps in. I don't have a lot of time, so it's not practical to think I'm going to do this big squat day, then 3 days later I'm going to do my power day. So throw it all in there, crush it.
Yeah, like a med ball and kettlebell throws are actually great for this as well. We used to do a lot of that. We take kettlebells out like onto a field, just metal kettlebells onto a field where we didn't care if we made huge divots in the ground, but just do kettlebell swings and then just like strongman style, just throw them as high as you can over your head. Do two swings and then throw it as high as you can. I used to love doing that as a kid. I haven't done it in a long time, but it's a very conservative way to do power training.
Well, luckily for us, we actually do that with med balls inside Rise. And with Sarah she does strong woman training. Anyway, she's got
strongest
the little
person.
Yeah, strongest human. Yeah. And she has this thing where you can measure the distance of how high you throw it up and over, like a super high hurdle. So yeah. Anyway, I've enjoyed that a ton, throwing med balls over that.
Yeah. So I was trying to incorporate it all into my life. Like the
life.
If I try to think about like adding things to a training program, there's like the trade-off of what am I going to get rid of? And if I'm training, like if I'm lifting heavy a couple days a week, I do a day of sprints and then I do some like mild time trials. It's hard for me to like want to get away from any of that stuff.
I know.
So a lot of these things just get built in. Like if I'm playing outside, I'll go over to the curb and try and do like 3 sets of 10 in the most athletic way of just bounding up to the curb. I'll just race the kids up the stairs, but I have to do bounding hops and they get to crawl up as fast as they can. Like I try to trick my kids and myself into training all the time to just make it all fit, knowing that like I'm in a pretty good rhythm of the last year of like running and sprinting really hard. And I feel like my body absolutely loves it. Like even if you're just doing it on the air
100%.
I feel like even on like a physiological level of this speed and power kind of conversation is like most people I feel like don't do it because it's really hard up front. But if you do it consistently, you realize that your body craves speed and power. It like at the highest level, it desires being very fast and very powerful. And if you can get through the initial like pain of running a mile as hard as you can once a week, you start to like be addicted to it. And
100%.
if you can convince yourself for a month to run hill sprints and feel like you're going to throw up at the top every single time you go, like it's 100% as hard as you can, or it's just on an airdyne and you're doing 45-second all out sprints. It totally sucks at the beginning, but about a month into it, your body is it gets past the pain and it really starts to crave that feeling. And it's probably the healthiest thing you can do is to get your body moving powerfully and fast.
Anecdotally, I would 100%. You will feel so good.
It's amazing. I'm no longer like chasing a 6-minute mile, but I never want to be outside of like a 6:30. Like it's just I just want to always be running as fast as I can. Like it's so ingrained in our physiology, probably in our genetics. There's something in there that turns on that just makes your body feel like it's flying that we've probably been doing for an extremely long amount of time. And it was before being lazy was allowed. And we just had to, that was like a function of life that made us feel there's some sort of like physiological worth that comes along with that feeling. And I think that you should just do it as much as possible. And with that, you're going to get the speed and power when you sprint. When you're doing the VO2 max training, you're going to be moving as fast as you can for as long as you can before you feel like you're going to die at 1 mile. And then working in, it may not be like the most optimal, but finding ways to just jump and play is really how I try to attack all this stuff. Like I feel like my training is good. It's all the life play athletic things that I feel like I want to continue just getting better on, but I'm not training athletics. I'm training to live a quality life, which means I'm out playing as much as I possibly can.
Awesome.
Shit.
That was good.
Go down on that one.
That was good.
Have a smash.
Matchelite.com, or you guys can read about a lot of this. I wrote an article about power and the size principle all on timmoyer.com in the blog section.
Doug Larson.
You bet. On Instagram, Douglas C. Larson.
I'm Anders Varner at Anders Varner, and we are Barbell Shrugged. Thanks for hanging out with the homies today.
The homies.
Bringing the word back. You can find me at Anders Varner. We are Barbell Shrugged at Barbell_Shrugged. Make sure you get over to rapidhealthreport.com. That is where you can learn more about how you can optimize your health and performance. And you can check out all of the resources over at rapidhealthreport.com. Friends, see you guys next week.